younger than we do today. It means pretty much what it suggests. That among the great world empires that have come and gone through history, America is exceptional. By that, we are the exception. We don't believe like, we don't act like those empires that have gone before. It doesn't matter how far back you go. Egypt, Assyria, the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, the French, Spanish, and our predecessors, Great Britain. America's different. We're not like them. We don't behave like them. We don't believe the way they do. A lot of theories as to why that may be true. In my humble opinion, it's simply that our nation was founded by some truly exceptional men who created our nation, established it on a foundation of truly remarkable and exceptional values and principles and ideals. Ideals they express so eloquently in our very Declaration of Independence. They refer to those values as truths that they held to be self-evident. That all men are created equal and endowed by our Creator, by God, with certain unalienable rights. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. The right to establish a government that derives its just powers from the consent of the governed. These are truly exceptional values, and principles, and ideals, unlike any seen before in history. So maybe that's the reason. Now, I realize, of course, there are those who do not agree. There are those who think American exceptionalism is a myth, and I understand. I respect their opinion. We certainly have our national sins. Slavery, perhaps highest among them. The internment of the Japanese in World War II. We could name many more. But my hope for our nation, as it is for myself, that we would be judged by the values we hold dear, the principles we try to live by, and the ideals we aspire to, and not by the times we fall short of those ideals.
Amen.
Or fail to live up to those principles.
Yeah.
I mean, after all, isn't that what we all want for ourselves?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me give some examples, if I may. One from a very dear friend named Jesse Yarborough. Jesse's passed away a long time ago. He was an Oklahoma farm boy, fought his way up through Italy for 3 years. Used to go to church with Jesse. He told me a story one time when I was over his house about the day he captured a German soldier. The German was hiding in a basement. Jesse's commander said, "Well, Jesse, you caught him. You got to guard him. We're going forward. You can't bring him with us. So wait here. If somebody comes, head to the rear. You can hand him off and come join up with us." So Jesse waited the rest of that day. No one came. That night, all the next day, nobody came. Second night, Jesse fell asleep. When he woke up, there was that German soldier 10 feet away, sitting cross-legged on the ground, looking at him with a big smile on his face. Jesse's weapon laying on the ground, a few feet from both of them. Jesse was able to communicate with him. The German spoke a little bit of broken English. He said, why are you still here? You could have run away. You could have shot me. Why are you here? The soldier looked at him with a big grin and said, why would I do that? For me, the war's over. I'm going to America. He said, you're the one I feel sorry for. You have to stay here and keep fighting.
Oh, my.
But the question has to be asked. Would that German soldier have felt that way had he been captured by the Russians?
No way.
Or anyone else for that matter?
Yeah.
But he wasn't captured by the Russians. He was captured by the Americans, and the Americans were different.
Yeah.
And he was excited that he was going to America.
Huh.
Another one, if I may, from the Battle of the Bulge. I know that's a battle we all are very familiar with. I've read a great many books on that battle. Bloodiest battle of the war for America. And I know many of you have as well. And of course, we all grew up with that very famous story from the Battle of the Bulge, didn't we? General McAuliffe, the interim commander of the 101st Airborne, surrounded at Bastogne by the German army, and his famous one-word reply to the Germans' demand for his surrender. What is it? What does he say?
Nuts!
Yeah. We love that story. We grew up with it. In fact, it was a huge boost of morale when word of it reached the U.S. Great story. I happened to be reading another book on the Battle of the Bulge just a few years ago called No Greater Valor by by Jerome Corsi. Probably the best book I've read on that iconic battle. And there was something in that book I had never read before. It was the story behind that reply, how it came about. It seems that General McAuliffe had had a particularly bad day the day before. And by the way, I don't even know how you do that. You're surrounded by the German army. It's the coldest, one of the coldest winters on record in Europe. You have very little winter gear. You're running low on food and ammunition. How do you have a particularly bad day? Isn't every day particularly
Pretty
bad?
bad.
I mean, I wonder what a particularly bad day looks like. In any event, he was actually taking a nap because he'd been up the night before. Now, Major Jones and Colonel Harper came in the command post and he said, they woke him up and said, "Sir, we have a letter from the German commander. It was delivered under a white flag." He said, what does it say? What do they want? "They want you to surrender." To which General McAuliffe replied, "Oh, nuts." Now, some on his staff in their after-action reports, they felt he was saying all nuts like, "Oh, nuts, one more thing I got to deal with." But there were a number of others who thought, no. They knew his eternal optimism and his sense of humor, and they thought he was actually sarcastically making a joke like, "Oh, nuts, I was hoping they were surrendering to us."
Yeah.
But either way, he got his staff together and said, we need to respond. We're obviously not going to surrender. He said, "I really don't know what to say." And that's when Colonel Harry Kennard, his division chief, he said, "That first crack you made would be hard to beat, General." He said, "What do you mean? What was that?" "You said nuts." Well, they all got a big laugh out of it. But General McAuliffe said, "You know what? Why not?
Why not?
I love it. Let's do it." So the letter read in its entirety as follows. To the German commander, nuts. For the American commander.
Love it.
Great story. And I was so thankful to learn the background of it. Colonel Harper was tasked with delivering the message to a German major who was waiting, and he gave the letter to the major, and the major said, "I don't understand, nuts, what does that mean? Are you surrendering or not surrendering?" He said, "Is your answer in the affirmative or the negative?" Colonel Harper said in his report, he said, "I made it abundantly clear to the major, in rather colorful language, that the answer was decidedly not in the affirmative." So a great story, and I was very thankful to learn the background of it. But there was something else in that book that I want to share with you that I also never read before. And it was the actual letter itself from the German commander. It was an insert in the book. Never seen it before. So I went online and actually printed it, and I keep it in my desk at home, and I show my children and grandchildren. In many ways, it's typical what you'd expect in a surrender letter. You're surrounded. There's no hope. Do the honorable thing. Give up. If you don't surrender, we will unleash an artillery barrage on your position in the town of Bastogne, which will result in the death of a great many innocent civilians. And then the letter said this, which would not correspond with the well-known American humanity. Catch that? In other words, we Germans, we're okay with killing these innocent people, but we know you Americans are not. You're known for your humanity. In fact, your humanity is well known. This reminds me that this German commander, in time of war, our enemy, was acknowledging American exceptionalism. You Americans are different. You don't act like everyone else. That letter actually made General McAuliffe mad. He felt like the Germans were trying to use our humanity against us, our goodness against us. One more, if I may. A few years ago, my wife and I had an opportunity to travel to Normandy. I know that's something many of you have done. For those of you who have not, I hope you will do so, or as we used to hear when we were here, all cadets who have not done so, please do so immediately. I think I got that from Don Hall. Yeah, man, we arranged a private tour, and our tour guide was a wonderful French woman in the mid-40s named Sandrine. And we were especially fortunate. Sandrine was the co-curator of the Normandy Museum. calm. So she was very well versed. We had a wonderful day with her. We saw the cliffs at Old Hawk. We saw the bunkers, the gun emplacements. We walked on that hollow beach, Omaha Beach. And our day ended at the American Cemetery. There came a time when Sandrine was a little bit off to herself, and she was fighting back tears. She came over and she said, "Every time I come here, I am so moved by the thought that you Americans would make such a terrible sacrifice as this for a people not your own." I'll never forget how she worded it. I was struck by the way she phrased it. In other words, I can understand French dying for the French, and I can understand Americans dying for the Americans. But you came over here and you made this terrible sacrifice for someone else, for a people not your own. Who does that? Nobody does that.
America does.
Sandrine was acknowledging in her own way American exceptionalism. You Americans, you're different. You're not like everybody else. So, I know many of you could share examples just like that from your family, your parents. These are not isolated incidents. They're merely examples. I'd love to hear your stories as well. So how do we honor the legacy of our parents and their generation? Well, I think we do what so many of you in the Spirit of 76 have done and are still doing, and that is live exceptional lives of your own. And of course, we pass along that legacy to our children and our grandchildren as well. We tell them about our parents, their grandparents and great-grandparents. They hear a great deal every day, don't they, about all that is wrong and bad about America. We need to remind them there's a great deal that is good and right as well. And of course, we all need to remember that we can't simply be the people of an exceptional nation. We must be a nation of exceptional people.
Amen.
There are some who believe that American exceptionalism is fading away alongside those old soldiers of World War II. Maybe they're right. But I'm more optimistic. I'm more hopeful. I read recently that in 2020, our government handed out about $47 billion in foreign aid to countries around the world. An impressive number in and of itself, isn't it? But that year, the American people, private citizens in the United States, out of their own pockets, gave over 10 times that amount to charities around the globe.
Wow.
In a year of COVID, when many Americans were tightening their belts, their charitable giving actually increased by over 5% to over $471 billion, almost $500 billion in 1 year.
Wow.
Now, that's more than any other country, by the way, on the planet. Now, some would suggest, well, America's the richest country, so that would make sense. But we also gave more per capita, and we gave a greater percentage of our income than any other country by a wide margin. And for what purpose? Well, to provide food, clothing, shelter, medical care, to build homes and schools, churches, hospitals, to drill wells, to provide clean water for the poor and the less fortunate. When we did that, I wonder if perhaps America is in a small way doing in peacetime that which our parents' generation did in wartime. We were helping the downtrodden, the oppressed, the poor, the widow, the orphan, the destitute. We were helping people who could not help themselves. In doing so, were we demonstrating, perhaps, that which that German commander called the well-known American humanity? And as Sandrine said so well, were we not doing it for a people, not our own? So I think the Spirit lives.
Amen.
And as God likes to say, the Spirit of the class of 76 most certainly lives in all of us. But maybe too, the Spirit of 1776 lives as well. God bless all of you, and God bless the Spirit of 76. God bless you.
Well done. Boy, Mike.